Little girl wrote a letter to Santa at the corner office. Then the widowed CEO knocked. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the golden strands of her hair and making them look like they were glowing. She chewed the end of her pencil, deep in thought. It was December, and the holidays were approaching, but Emma wasn't thinking about toys, candy, or snowmen. Instead, her mind was filled with something far more important: her mother's smile. Her mother, Sarah, had been quiet lately. Since Emma's father had passed away 2 years ago, the house felt emptier than it used to. Sarah did her best to care for Emma, to cook dinner, and to keep the house warm, but the sadness lingered in her eyes. Emma remembered the way her mother used to laugh at silly jokes, how she would twirl around in the kitchen singing songs while cooking. Those moments felt like distant memories now. Emma wished she could bring that laughter back, just for a little while. Emma picked up her pencil and pressed it to the paper. She knew exactly who could help Santa, but not the Santa at the mall or the one in the red suit on TV. No, she wanted to write to a special Santa, someone she had read about at her mother's office. Santa at the corner office. She smiled softly as she wrote the address at the top of the paper. It felt a little funny, writing to a real office instead of the North Pole, but Emma was serious. She wanted someone who could understand grown-up things, someone who could maybe help her mother feel happy again. Emma's pencil moved slowly across the page, forming careful letters. "Dear Santa at the corner office," she began. Her words were simple, but they carried all the feelings of her 8-year-old heart. "I know you are very busy, and I don't want toys or candy this year. I only have one wish. I want my mommy to be happy again. She smiles sometimes, but not like she used to. Please help her." Emma paused, biting her lip as she thought about how to explain what happiness looked like to her mother. She thought about the time they baked cookies together, and her mother had laughed so hard that flour had gotten all over her face. That laughter was like a spark, a little light that made everything feel warm. Emma wanted that spark to come back. She continued writing, her handwriting careful and uneven in places. "I will try to be good and help her too. I can clean my room and help with the dishes. I promise. Please make her smile again, Santa." When she finished, Emma folded the letter neatly and put it into an envelope. She drew a little heart on the front, hoping it would remind the Santa at the corner office that this letter was very important. Her heart was pounding a little with excitement. It felt brave to send a message like this, even if it was just a little piece of paper. The next day, Emma walked with the envelope to her mother's office. It was a small office, not too fancy but always busy. People hurried past her, carrying papers and talking on phones, not noticing the little girl who had something very serious to deliver. Emma climbed up the short stairs to the front desk, where the receptionist smiled at her. "Hi, Emma." "What do you have there?" the receptionist asked. Emma held up the envelope. "It's for Santa at the corner office," she said softly. She didn't explain more because she wasn't sure how to say it in words. The receptionist's eyes twinkled when she took the envelope. "Well, I think he'll be very happy to get it," she said. "I'll make sure it reaches him." Emma nodded and turned to leave, feeling a little lighter than when she had walked in. The letter was out of her hands now. She couldn't wait to see if her Santa would read it, but she tried not to get her hopes too high. Still, she imagined the corner office somewhere upstairs, and someone sitting there reading her words, feeling what she felt. Meanwhile, in the corner office on the top floor of the building, James Harper, the CEO, sat alone. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but they looked tired these days. Since his wife had passed away 3 years ago, James had thrown himself into his work. Running the company had been his way of keeping busy, but it also left him feeling lonely. His young daughter, Lily, lived with her mother, and James often wondered if he was missing out on the little moments that made life feel full. That morning, James had a quiet moment in his office before a meeting. He was sorting through letters from employees, business proposals, and a few holiday cards when one envelope caught his eye. It was smaller than most, with childish handwriting on the front and a tiny heart drawn in red. Curious, he picked it up and read the name, Santa at the corner office. He smiled faintly, thinking it was a joke from one of the staff. But when he opened the envelope and read the letter inside, his smile faded. The words were simple, but they struck him deeply. I only have one wish. I want my mommy to be happy again. She smiles sometimes, but not like she used to. Please help her. James leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He could feel the ache of that little girl's heart, so pure and honest. He remembered his own daughter and how she sometimes looked at him with worry, sensing the sadness he tried to hide. A strange warmth filled his chest, mixing with the sadness he had carried for so long. Here was a child, barely old enough to understand the world, reaching out to someone she had never met, asking for hope. For the first time in months, James felt something shift inside him. He wanted to do more than just read the letter and move on. He wanted to respond. Not as a CEO, not as a businessman, but as someone who could bring a little light into a child's life and maybe, somehow, help a grieving mother find her smile again. He reached for a fresh sheet of paper and a pen, his hand a little unsteady as he began to write back. He wasn't sure what he would say yet, but he knew it had to be gentle, kind, and full of hope. He could feel the responsibility in that moment, not as a leader of a company, but as a human being. The letter wasn't just words on paper. It was trust, a hope placed in his hands by someone who believed he could help. Back in her bedroom, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the letter. She imagined the Santa at the corner office reading her words, maybe smiling, maybe nodding, maybe thinking of ways to make her wish come true. She couldn't know that upstairs, in the corner office, someone was already moved by her simple request. She imagined the magic that might follow, not realizing that sometimes magic begins quietly, with just one brave heart and one small piece of paper. Emma went about her day, helping her mother with chores, tidying her room and trying to make small jokes to see if she could coax a smile. Her mother noticed her efforts and smiled faintly, but it was not the wide, carefree smile Emma remembered. Still, Emma kept hoping. She knew that magic sometimes took time, and she had sent her letter into the world with patience and faith. That night as she lay in bed, Emma whispered into the darkness, "Please, Santa at the corner office, help my mommy be happy again." Her eyes closed, and she imagined her mother laughing like she used to, flour on her cheeks, singing songs, twirling in the kitchen. The thought filled her heart with warmth, a tiny flame of hope that refused to go out. Little did Emma know, far above her head, in the quiet corner office, someone was holding her words in his hands, feeling the weight and the beauty of them. The connection between the two, though invisible and silent, had begun. A child's pure wish had reached a grown man's heart, and something extraordinary was about to unfold. James Harper sat in his corner office, staring at the little envelope that had changed the rhythm of his day. He had read Emma's letter once, twice, maybe 3 times, each time feeling a tug at his heart. He was a man used to solving problems, negotiating deals, and managing deadlines, but this letter wasn't a business matter. It was different. It was real. It was about someone's heart. For hours, James thought about how to respond. He wanted to be gentle but encouraging. He wanted to make sure Emma knew that her words had been heard. He wanted her to feel hope. He thought about all the holiday letters he had received over the years, requests for toys, for charity, for donations. But this letter was different. It wasn't about material things. It was about love. Finally, he decided to write back. He wanted to write as Santa at the corner office, keeping the magic alive for Emma. He picked up a fresh sheet of paper and held his pen with care, almost as if the pen itself carried the power to make a little girl's wish come true. "Dear Emma," he began, his handwriting careful and deliberate. "I received your letter, and I want you to know that your wish is very special. It is not easy to ask for someone's happiness, but your heart is full of love, and that is the most important thing in the world." James paused for a moment, thinking about what to say next. Words felt small compared to the feelings behind them. He took a deep breath and continued. "I cannot promise magic like in stories, but I can promise to try my best to help. Sometimes happiness is found in small moments, laughter, kindness, and love shared with others. I believe that you and your mommy can find those moments together." As he wrote, James felt a strange mixture of emotions. He felt sadness for the little girl who had experienced loss. He felt admiration for her courage to reach out. And he felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years, a gentle hope that perhaps something good could come from this simple exchange of letters. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully and placed it in a special envelope. On the front, he wrote in bold letters, "From Santa at the corner office." He didn't put his name. That wasn't important. What mattered was that Emma would feel that someone listened, someone cared, and someone believed in the magic of her heart. The next morning, the receptionist at Sarah's office handed Emma the letter. Her eyes widened as she held it in her hands. The envelope was decorated with little stars, and the handwriting seemed friendly and kind. Emma didn't waste a second. She carefully opened the letter and began to read. As she read the words, a tiny smile began to form on her lips. It was the first smile her mother had seen in a long time. She looked up at her mother, who had been watching her quietly, and whispered, "Mommy, look." "Santa wrote me back." Sarah came closer, gently taking the letter from Emma's hands. She read it slowly, absorbing every word. Her eyes welled up with tears, but this time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude, of wonder, of hope. She hugged Emma tightly, and Emma hugged back, feeling the warmth she had been missing for so long. "That was very kind of him," Sarah said softly. "Santa at the corner office really listened to you." Emma nodded. "He said he would try to help me make you happy again," she said, her voice full of innocence and belief. Sarah smiled, feeling a spark of something she hadn't felt in months. Maybe it wasn't magic in the fairy tale sense, but it was real, real kindness, real care, real hope. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that things could get better, that happiness could return to their little home. Over the next few days, Emma and her mother talked about the letter constantly. Emma asked questions, imagined scenarios, and planned little ways to make each day brighter. She suggested baking cookies, decorating the house, and even leaving little notes for each other. Sarah went along with it, feeling lighter with each small gesture, her heart slowly opening to the possibility of joy again. Meanwhile, James Harper had also been thinking about Emma. He couldn't stop imagining the little girl who had reached out to him with such honesty and trust. He wanted to do more than just write letters. He wanted to see if there was a way to bring a little more light into her world. One afternoon, he made a decision. He would visit Emma and her mother. Not in a formal way, not as the CEO of a company, but as a human being who wanted to spread kindness. He carefully planned a simple visit, bringing along small, thoughtful gifts, not expensive ones, but meaningful. For Emma, a set of art supplies, knowing how much she loved to draw. For her mother, a photo frame with a picture of their home, a reminder of the happy memories they could create together. When James arrived at their home, he felt a nervous excitement he hadn't experienced in years. Emma opened the door first, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Santa?" she asked softly, peeking around her mother. "Yes," James said with a gentle smile. "Santa wanted to stop by and see how you were doing." Emma's face lit up with a bright, joyful smile. She grabbed his hand and pulled him inside. Sarah followed, a mixture of surprise and gratitude on her face. She had not expected this, and yet something about James' presence felt comforting, not overwhelming. James handed Emma the art supplies. "I heard you like to draw," he said. "Maybe you can draw something for your mommy." Emma's eyes sparkled as she tore open the package. She immediately began imagining all the pictures she could create, all the colors she could use to brighten her mother's days. Then James handed Sarah the photo frame. "Sometimes, looking at happy memories reminds us of the joy we can have again," he said softly. Sarah accepted it, feeling the gesture deeply. It wasn't a grand gift, but it was meaningful. It was hope made tangible. During the visit, they talked and laughed. James shared simple stories from his own life, and Sarah found herself laughing for the first time in months. Emma was thrilled to see her mother smiling, and she felt a warmth in her heart that she had been missing. Before leaving, James knelt down to Emma's level. "Remember," he said, "happiness doesn't always come all at once. Sometimes it comes in small moments, in little acts of kindness. Keep looking for those moments and you'll find joy together." Emma nodded seriously. "I will, Santa," she said. She hugged him tightly, and for a moment James felt a connection that went beyond words. It was the kind of connection that reminded him why human kindness mattered more than anything else. As James walked back to his office, he felt a strange lightness. He realized that helping others heal could also heal his own heart. The visit had reminded him that even in grief, there was room for new beginnings, for friendship, and for hope. Back in her home, Emma and her mother reflected on the visit. They talked about the letter, the gifts, and the kindness of a stranger who had come into their lives. Sarah hugged Emma tightly. "You were brave to write that letter," she said. "It brought more happiness into our lives than you could imagine." Emma smiled, feeling proud and hopeful. She knew that the magic she had wished for was real, not because of toys or gifts, but because someone had listened, cared, and acted with love. It was a magic she could feel in her heart, a warmth she would carry forever. That night, as Emma went to bed, she whispered to herself, "Thank you, Santa," at the corner office. She closed her eyes and imagined her mother laughing, the house filled with warmth, and the small sparks of joy that had returned to their lives. She knew that this was just the beginning of something special. Far away in his office, James sat back in his chair and smiled. He thought about the little girl who had written the letter, the mother who had received hope, and the small acts of kindness that could change lives. He realized that sometimes, the simplest gestures could create the most profound impact. And he knew that he would continue to help, not as a CEO, but as someone who believed in the power of hope, the magic of kindness, and the beauty of a little girl's brave heart. The following weeks brought a quiet excitement to Emma's little home. The letter had been read, the visit had happened, and yet the magic of what had begun lingered in the air like the soft scent of pine around the holidays. Emma woke each morning with a sense of purpose, her small hands helping her mother prepare breakfast, picking up scattered toys, and folding little piles of laundry. But most importantly, she noticed her mother smiling more often. Sarah had begun to change in subtle ways. The heaviness she had carried for so long seemed lighter. She hummed tunes while cooking, laughed at Emma's jokes, and sometimes even twirled around in the kitchen just for fun. It wasn't a wide, carefree smile every day, but it was enough to make Emma feel hope. Enough to make her heart feel full again. One chilly afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Emma ran to answer it, hoping it might be someone from school or a friend. When she opened it, she saw James Harper standing there, holding a small bag in his hand. Emma's eyes lit up instantly. "Santa at the corner office," she exclaimed, forgetting for a moment that this was not the North Pole but a man in a gray coat who had brought real magic into her life. "Yes, it's me," James said with a gentle smile, stepping inside. "I thought I'd stop by to see how my favorite little helper and her wonderful mother are doing." Sarah came to the door, surprise and gratitude mixing on her face. "James, you didn't have to," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied. "I thought we could spend a little time together, maybe create more happy moments for you both." They sat down in the living room, the warmth from the fireplace filling the room. James took out the contents of the bag, a small set of books for Emma, a colorful board game for them to play together, and a little plant for Sarah's kitchen windowsill. "I thought these could help add a little more joy to your days," he said. Emma's face glowed as she picked up the books and flipped through the pages. She couldn't wait to read them aloud to her mother, imagining the adventures they would go on together. Sarah smiled as she took the plant, feeling the life in its tiny leaves and the reminder that growth and happiness could come from the smallest things. They spent the afternoon playing the board game. Emma laughed at the silly pieces and the playful competition, cheering when her mother won a round and teasing gently when she didn't. Sarah laughed too, the sound ringing through the house in a way it hadn't in months. James joined in, pretending to be overly dramatic when he lost, making Emma giggle so hard that she nearly toppled over. It was a simple afternoon, but for all three of them it felt extraordinary. They weren't just spending time together, they were healing together. Emma's wish had not only touched her mother's heart, but had also brought warmth into James' life. He had felt the quiet ache of loss for so long that the laughter and smiles of this little family were like a balm to his own heart. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emma ran to her room to fetch a small sketchbook. "I want to draw something for today," she exclaimed. She carefully selected her colored pencils and began to sketch a picture of the three of them playing together, with the fireplace glowing in the background and hearts floating around like balloons. Sarah watched her daughter, feeling a swell of pride and love. She leaned over to James and whispered, "Look at her, she's happier than I've seen her in a long time, and it's because of you." James shook his head gently. "No, it's because of her bravery, her heart, and the love she has for you. I only helped a little." When Emma finished the drawing, she proudly showed it to them. "Look, this is us," she said. James and Sarah smiled, admiring the colorful picture. Sarah hung it on the refrigerator with a magnet, a permanent reminder of the day and the happiness it brought. Over the next few weeks, James continued to check in on Emma and her mother. Sometimes it was a short visit, sometimes a note in the mail, sometimes a small gift to remind them that someone cared. Each gesture, no matter how small, helped Sarah feel lighter, helped Emma feel seen, and helped James feel connected in ways he had forgotten were possible. One rainy afternoon, James arrived with an idea. "Why don't we bake cookies together?" he suggested. "I hear you're an expert at decorating." Emma clapped her hands in excitement. "Yes, let's do it," she exclaimed, dragging her mother and James into the kitchen. Flour flew everywhere as they rolled dough, cut shapes, and decorated with colorful icing. Sarah laughed as she accidentally smeared a little icing on James' nose, and James pretended to be shocked. Emma giggled uncontrollably, sticking her tongue out playfully at both of them. After the cookies were baked, they sat together at the kitchen table, enjoying warm cookies and milk. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter, stories, and little jokes. Sarah noticed how relaxed James seemed, how the heaviness he carried had softened just like hers had. It was as if their shared moments of joy had created a little circle of warmth around them, shielding them from the sadness they had both experienced in their lives. As the holidays drew nearer, James suggested a small surprise. "I thought we could decorate the living room together," he said, bringing out a box of ornaments, twinkling lights, and a small tree. Emma's eyes sparkled as they set up the tree, hanging ornaments carefully, placing the star on top, and wrapping the presents they had already gathered. The tree wasn't big or fancy, but it filled the room with light and color, a symbol of the happiness slowly returning to their lives. That evening, after the lights were turned on and the tree glowed softly in the corner, Emma sat on the floor, gazing at the decorations. "Thank you, Santa at the corner office," she whispered. "I think you really did help." Sarah joined her, holding Emma's hand. "It's not just him," she said softly. "It's all of us helping each other. But yes, he brought a little extra magic." James, standing nearby, felt a warmth in his chest that words could not describe. The little family he had come to care for had reminded him of the beauty of human connection. They had reminded him that even in the darkest moments, Small acts of kindness could create ripples of joy and hope. In the weeks that followed, the bond between Emma, her mother, and James grew stronger. They shared stories, celebrated small victories, and leaned on each other during moments of challenge. Emma's laughter became more frequent, her mother's smile more genuine, and James' heart lighter than it had been in years. One quiet evening, as they sat together enjoying cocoa and cookies, Emma looked up at James. "Do you think Santa really comes to people's lives?" she asked with wide eyes. James smiled, leaning back in his chair. "I think Santa is real wherever there is someone who cares, who listens, and who brings happiness to others," he said. "And you, Emma, are a very special kind of Santa, too." Emma beamed at the words, feeling proud and happy. She realized that her simple letter had started something bigger than she could have imagined. It had brought happiness, laughter, and connection into lives that had been touched by loss. As the evening grew darker and the lights of the tree twinkled softly, Emma and her mother hugged James, feeling grateful for the kindness that had entered their lives. They didn't know what the future would hold, but they knew that with love, hope, and small acts of kindness, even the heaviest hearts could find light again. And so, a little letter, a brave little girl, and a kind man had created a bond that would continue to grow. A reminder that magic often begins quietly, with a single act of love and a heart willing to believe. The days after the holiday decorations had been put up felt like a new chapter for Emma and her mother. The house, which had once felt heavy with quiet sadness, now carried warmth, laughter, and the gentle promise of hope. The small gestures, the thoughtful visits, and the shared moments with James had sparked a change that neither Emma nor her mother could have imagined when she first wrote that little letter. Emma woke each morning with energy and excitement. She would run to the kitchen to help her mother make breakfast, humming little songs she had invented herself. Sarah smiled more often, her laughter light and unguarded, and Emma could feel the difference in the air. Even on difficult mornings, when the weight of the past threatened to settle back in, the little sparks of joy reminded them that happiness could return, slowly but surely. One afternoon, as Sarah worked at her desk and Emma was drawing at the kitchen table, there was a knock at the door. Emma ran to open it, expecting James. But it wasn't him this time. It was a small delivery, a note attached to the package. Curious, Emma tore it open to find a card with simple, heartfelt words. "Keep believing. You are doing wonderfully. Santa at the corner office." Emma's eyes sparkled as she ran to show her mother. Sarah's heart swelled at the gesture. It was a small thing, but it meant so much. It reminded them both that kindness could appear in unexpected ways, and that the world still held people willing to care, even in the busiest lives. A week later, James decided to invite them to the office for a special holiday celebration. "It won't be anything fancy," he assured them, sensing Sarah's hesitation. "Just a little gathering, some laughter, and maybe some fun. You don't need to bring anything." The day of the visit, Emma was practically buzzing with excitement. She had spent hours deciding what to wear, wanting to look nice for the occasion. Sarah was more reserved, but she was eager to see how her daughter would enjoy the event. When they arrived at the office, they were greeted warmly by James and a few of his employees, who had heard bits of Emma's story and were touched by the little girl's bravery and heart. The office, which had always seemed serious and busy to Emma when she accompanied her mother on rare work visits, now felt welcoming. There were decorations, music, and even a small table with cookies and cocoa. Emma's eyes grew wide, and she grabbed her mother's hand. "Mommy, look, this is amazing." They spent the afternoon playing games, meeting a few kind-hearted staff members and sharing laughter. Emma showed everyone her drawings, proudly explaining the stories behind them, and Sarah couldn't stop smiling, watching her daughter light up the room with her energy and innocence. James observed quietly, feeling warmth in his chest. Watching the two of them, he realized just how much this connection meant to him. He had entered their lives thinking he was helping, but in truth, they were helping him as well. They had reminded him of the joy of human connection, the importance of small moments, and the power of kindness to heal even the most guarded hearts. After the celebration, James led them to a quiet corner of the office. "I wanted to give you something special," he said, handing Sarah a small journal. "It's for memories, little notes, sketches, thoughts, anything you want to record. Sometimes looking back can remind us how far we've come." Sarah accepted the journal with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "This means a lot. It's perfect." Emma grabbed James' hand and held it tightly. "Thank you for everything, Santa," she said earnestly. James knelt down to her level, smiling warmly. "You're welcome, Emma, but remember you've done so much too. Your bravery, your love for your mother, it's all part of the magic." Over the following weeks, James' gentle presence became a natural part of their lives. He would stop by occasionally with small surprises, a new book for Emma, a recipe to try with her mother, or a story to read together. Emma looked forward to these moments with a mix of excitement and anticipation, while Sarah welcomed the support and friendship that James brought. One crisp afternoon, as the first snow of winter began to fall outside, James suggested a walk in the nearby park. Emma and her mother bundled up in warm coats and scarves, their breath visible in the cold air. The snow covered the ground in a soft white blanket, and the bare trees sparkled as the sun caught the frost. It was peaceful, serene, and perfect for reflection. As they walked, Emma's small hands tucked into her mother's, James spoke gently. "You've both come a long way since the letter," he said. "I know it hasn't been easy, but look at you now. You're stronger, happier, and full of life." Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "It's amazing how much difference a small gesture, a little kindness can make," she said. "Emma's letter, it changed everything." Emma looked up at James, her eyes wide and sincere. "I just wanted my mommy to smile again," she said. "I didn't know it would bring someone like you into our lives, too." James smiled, feeling a lump in his throat. "Sometimes the smallest wishes have the biggest impact," he said, "and your courage made all of this possible." They walked in silence for a few moments, watching the snowflakes drift gently to the ground. The park felt like a little world of peace, a place removed from sadness and worry. It reminded them that joy could be simple, that happiness could be found in quiet moments, and that connection was the most powerful kind of magic. Back at home, Emma began a new tradition. She and her mother would write little notes to each other, recording small moments of joy, things that made them laugh, and memories they wanted to remember. Sometimes they would share the notes with James, who would respond with his own thoughts, stories, or gentle encouragement. It was a circle of kindness and love that strengthened with each passing day. Sarah began to notice something remarkable. The heaviness that had weighed on her heart for so long had lessened. Her laughter came more freely, her energy returned, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that healing wasn't about forgetting or moving on too quickly. It was about allowing moments of joy to re-enter life and letting them grow, little by little. Emma, too, had changed. She felt more confident, brave, and capable. She had learned that her words and actions mattered, that even a small voice could create real change. And she knew that magic didn't always come from fairy tales. It could come from the kindness of people who cared, from hearts that listened, and from love that was freely given. James found himself reflecting on his own life in new ways. The loss he had carried for years was still there, but it no longer felt like a burden that defined him. Instead, he saw it as a part of his journey, one that allowed him to connect with others in meaningful ways. The little family he had become a part of reminded him that hope and happiness could be cultivated, even in the quietest, most unexpected moments. As the season moved forward, they continued to celebrate small joys, baking cookies, playing board games, sharing stories, and enjoying each other's company. Every visit from James felt like a gift, not just for Emma and her mother, but for him as well. He had discovered that giving, listening, and caring could heal wounds and bring light into lives that had known darkness for far too long. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Emma looked up at her mother and James. "Do you think happiness can last forever?" she asked softly. Sarah smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Happiness isn't about it lasting forever," she said. "It's about finding moments of joy and love and holding onto them as much as we can." James nodded in agreement. "And sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places. A letter, a smile, or a simple act of kindness. What matters is that we notice it and cherish it." Emma thought about her letter, the visit, the gifts, and the laughter they had shared. She realized that even a small wish could grow into something extraordinary, touching the hearts of many and creating bonds that lasted far beyond a single day. As the night drew on and the fire crackled softly, they sat together in a comfortable silence, feeling the warmth of friendship, love, and hope. The little sparks of joy that had entered their lives had grown into something steady and strong, a reminder that even in the hardest times, light could be found, nurtured, and shared. And so, life continued for Emma, her mother, and James. Their bond deepened with every moment, every smile, and every small act of kindness. They had discovered that true magic wasn't about grand gestures or extravagant gifts. It was about love, compassion, and the courage to reach out to one another, to heal together, and to find joy in the journey. The following winter was the first one in years that felt truly bright. For Emma and her mother, the little house, once quiet and filled with the echo of sadness, now resonated with laughter, chatter, and warmth. Each day carried small moments of joy, Emma drawing colorful pictures, her mother humming while cooking, and sometimes the gentle knock of a familiar visitor bringing new smiles. Emma had learned something important over the past months, that even the smallest actions could make a difference. A letter, a kind word, a visit, or a shared cookie could spark happiness that spread quietly but powerfully. She had learned that courage wasn't about big adventures, but about doing what was right for the people you loved. She had learned that magic was not always something you saw, it was something you felt in your heart. One chilly December morning, Emma and her mother were busy in the kitchen baking cookies for the neighborhood. They had invited a few friends and neighbors to share in the warmth of their home. Flour covered the counters, sugar dusted the floor, and the smell of chocolate and vanilla filled the air. Emma laughed as she accidentally dropped a cookie onto the floor and then picked it up with exaggerated care, saying it was a special cookie. Her mother smiled, realizing how much fun it was to live in the small, joyful moments again. There was a knock at the door. Emma ran to open it, her eyes lighting up when she saw James standing there, a small box in his hands. "Good morning, my favorite helpers," he called cheerfully. "Santa," Emma shouted, grabbing his hand and pulling him inside. "Come help us bake." James laughed, following her into the kitchen. "I'm not sure I'm as skilled as you two, but I'll do my best," he said, rolling up his sleeves. The morning was filled with laughter, stories, and the occasional mishap. Flour ended up on noses, cocoa spilled on the counter, and everyone had sticky hands. But no one minded. It was the kind of joyful chaos that felt comforting, the kind that made the house feel alive with love. After the baking was done, they packed cookies into small gift bags to deliver to neighbors and friends. Emma and her mother noticed how happy it made people, even strangers, to receive a simple gesture of kindness. Each smile they encountered reminded them of the power of connection and the ripple effect that one act of love could have. As the afternoon settled into evening, James suggested they take a short walk through the neighborhood to deliver the cookies. The streets were lined with twinkling lights, wreaths hung on doors, and the quiet hum of winter filled the air. Emma skipped along happily, carrying a bag of cookies in one hand, while her mother and James followed closely behind. During the walk, James paused to look at Emma. "You know," he said softly, "the first time I received your letter, I never imagined it would lead to all of this. It was just a little note, but it opened the door to so much happiness for all of us." Emma looked up at him with wide eyes. "It did?" she asked. James smiled. "It did. Your courage and love brought us together. You reminded me of what really matters: family, kindness, and the small moments that make life beautiful." Sarah, walking beside them, squeezed James' hand gently. "We all needed that reminder," she said. "Sometimes life can feel heavy, but you've shown us that joy can always return, even when we least expect it." The trio continued their walk, delivering cookies to neighbors who greeted them warmly, often surprised to see the small girl leading the way. Each interaction filled Emma with pride and joy. She realized that her actions could make people feel happy, just like her letter had done months ago. Back at home, they returned to the warmth of the house, their cheeks flushed from the cold and laughter. Emma set her cookies down on the counter and ran to the living room. "Mommy, Santa, I have an idea," she exclaimed. "What is it?" her mother asked. Emma held up her sketchbook. "I want to make a storybook about everything that's happened this year. About the letter, the visits, the cookies, and all the happiness we found." James and Sarah exchanged smiles. "That sounds wonderful," James said. "It will be a story we can remember forever." For the next few days, Emma worked diligently on her storybook. She drew pictures of their home, the office, the park, and even the snowy walk delivering cookies. She wrote small captions under each picture, describing the events and the feelings they had experienced. Sarah helped her with words and spelling, but the ideas, the heart, and the illustrations were all Emma's. When the storybook was finished, they gathered together to read it. Emma proudly flipped through the pages, explaining each drawing. "This is when I wrote the letter," she said, pointing to the first page. "And this is when Santa came to visit, and here's when we baked cookies together." Sarah smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's perfect," she said softly. "It's a reminder of how far we've come and how much love we've shared." James nodded, feeling a deep warmth in his chest. "It's more than a storybook," he said. "It's a treasure, a record of courage, kindness, and the magic that happens when hearts connect." As winter gave way to the soft early days of spring, the bond between Emma, her mother, and James grew stronger. They continued to share simple joys, board games, walks in the park, small acts of kindness, and they discovered that happiness could be nurtured and strengthened over time. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Emma asked her mother and James to sit with her by the fireplace. She had something to say. "I wrote another letter," she said, holding up a new piece of paper. "But this one isn't just for Santa at the corner office. It's for all of us." Sarah and James looked at her curiously. Emma began reading aloud. "Dear Mommy and Santa, thank you for helping me find happiness again. Thank you for showing me that love and kindness can change everything. I hope we always remember the joy we shared and continue to make each other smile every day. Love, Emma." Sarah hugged her tightly, feeling her heart swell. "You're right, Emma," she said. "We will always remember and continue to share happiness." James placed his hand gently on Emma's shoulder. "And we will," he said, "because love and kindness don't end, they grow." That night, as Emma lay in bed, she thought about everything that had happened. The letter she had written, the visits, the laughter, and the small moments of joy. She realized that her wish had come true in more ways than she could have imagined. Her mother was smiling again, their home was filled with warmth, and a friend who cared had entered their lives forever. James, back in his office that evening, reflected on the year. The little girl's letter had touched him in ways he never expected. It had reminded him of the power of human connection, the importance of small acts of kindness, and the beauty of hope. He felt gratitude for being part of their lives, and he knew that the bond they shared would continue to grow long after the holidays had passed. In the days and months that followed, Emma's family continued to thrive. Their home was filled with laughter, music, and warmth. Emma grew more confident, her mother more joyful, and James more connected to the meaning of giving and caring. They had learned that happiness wasn't about perfect days or grand gestures. It was about the moments shared, the love expressed, and the courage to reach out to one another. Years later, Emma would remember that first letter she had written. She would remember the day it arrived at the corner office, the visits from a kind man who became like family, and the way her mother's smile returned. She would remember the cookies, the storybook, the walks in the snow, and the countless small gestures that had created something extraordinary. And she would remember one important truth, that even the smallest voice, filled with love and courage, could change lives in ways that were beautiful, lasting, and magical. For Emma, her mother, and James, the magic of kindness and love had become a permanent part of their lives, a gift far greater than any present under a tree, a gift that would continue to grow, inspiring them and everyone they met to believe in the power of hope, connection, and the human heart.